Hello and welcome to Regulatory Roundup, a recap of recent regulatory changes affecting the European food supplement industry. Brought to you by Rubicon Bridge. My name's Lee and today I'm lucky enough to be joined by my colleague, Scarlet from Rubicon Technical. She's the Regulatory Director there. And Scarlet, before you start, I don't know if you saw the first podcast.
Yes, I did.
So did you know that Dan has actually put it in his contract that I have to start every podcast with a weird abstract metaphor about regulatory compliance?
Oh, it's in the contract.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter that he's not here today. I have to do it, so bear with me. Are you a fan of gladiators?
No, I wouldn't say so.
Have you watched the new one?
No.
No, me either. To our US friends, by the way, that's also, I think it's known as the American Gladiators. Nice original name you got there. So I like to think of, well, a lot of times when I speak to a brand, it's when they're, hopefully it's when they're first thinking about launching internationally and maybe come to the UK for the first time. And it's great that I'm speaking to them at that point, but often I'm speaking to them just a little bit too late and things have gone wrong. So I like to think about trying to navigate product launches and driving innovation in the food supplement industry a bit like trying to run up that blooming travelator at the end of Gladiators, but you're wearing your nan's slippers. Because you know something's going to go wrong at some point, you just don't necessarily know when that is. So Dan, that one was for you. Right, so today, a little change of format today, because as I mentioned before, we're lucky enough to be joined by Scarlet. So we will cover off a couple of recent regulatory updates in the industry, but then we're going to pivot a little bit and we've got a focus topic to discuss as well. Okay, so Scarlet, I thought we would start with the update to magnesium threonate in the UK, and I saw that that's recently been approved.
Yeah, so that's really interesting because that's been approved this year just recently. I think it was 5th of March, whereas it was approved in the EU as a novel food at the back end of 2024 in November. So there you can obviously see quite a significant lag from the UK authorities of after having that safety assessment, the positive safety assessment published, then having magnesium threonate authorised as a novel food for use in food supplements.
I guess so. It's probably better that we've seen a lag rather than further divergence, right?
Yeah.
Especially since it feels like people are going to look at us like we're crazy saying that that's just been approved, given that it is on the market and seemingly everywhere at the moment anyway.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the frameworks in the UK and EU with novel foods are essentially the same. It's just that the FSA take control of managing those authorisations, reviewing them and then publishing them as compared to the EFSA in the EU. So that lag comes from there. But yeah, it's great that there's no divergence in that the FSA haven't turned around and said, yeah.
Because it didn't go the same way for titanium dioxide, did it?
No,
which was interesting. I guess what else is interesting about, well, actually, before I get into that, just remind me, on novel food applications, it's usually the application itself is done by one company, right? And then they have like a period of exclusivity.
Yeah,
right?
So you can apply for a period of data protection.
Right.
So the applicant for magnesium threonate, AIDP, did that in both the EU and the UK when they applied in the EU, and that was authorised in November 2024. That period of data protection was granted for 5 years, meaning it would end in 2029. And they did the same in the UK, applied for that period of data protection, but because it's only just been authorised March 2026, that means that period of data protection ends in the UK in 2031,
right?
Essentially extending the
even though
data.
It's been on the market.
Yes, yeah. So brands aren't likely to move away from AIDP as a supplier and exclude the UK market.
So if you're a brand today and you're looking to bring to market a new magnesium product, and you haven't already done so, like it seems like the most of the market has already done that. But let's say that you were squeaky clean and playing by the rules, and you are now just looking to bring a magnesium 3-in-8 containing product to the market. I'm right in thinking then that you have to source that from the manufacturer that you mentioned.
Yes, yeah, that's right. So you would have to go with AIDP unless in the interim another manufacturer files an application in the UK or EU for magnesium 3-in-8.
So just on the topic of magnesium more generally, I see it all over my Instagram feed, and it seems to always be linked to products that claim to help you with sleep. So far as I know, there isn't an authorised health claim linking magnesium to sleep. Is there anything anywhere near that kind of you think warrants people making that jump, or is it like a fully unauthorised health claim that brands probably should be avoiding?
Yeah, so I've seen the same, and there is a authorised health claim for magnesium relating to reduction of tiredness and fatigue, but that's a bit of a stretch when it comes to sleep claims. The other issue with sleep claims in general is that they're very borderline medicinal. So if you're making sleep claims and they suggest a sedative effect, that it will help you get to sleep or stay asleep, then they're just not suitable for food supplements as they're interpreted as medicinal claims.
Right.
So, yeah, although there's a lot of it on the market, it's definitely not compliant.
Okay, so watch this space for an ASA finding in the coming months. I always wonder, like, what's on their Instagram feed, because some of the stuff I see coming up, I'm like, I don't know where you found that. I've never heard of that brand, never heard of that product, never seen a claim like that before.
Yeah.
Whereas it seems like that is something that is so overtly out there. It's amazing that nobody's been picked up on it before.
Yeah, I think the enforcement is lacking, but I have actually seen enforcement in sleep claims before,
right?
By the MHRA and by the ASA.
Okay.
Maybe not specifically related to magnesium, although I have actually. But yeah, there's definitely enforcement for sleep claims.
And just for our non-UK listeners, the ASA, that's the Advertisement Standard Agency.
Yeah.
MHRA.
Medicines and Healthcare Regulatory Agency. So they're
very good. That's a quiz.
Yeah.
A quiz you didn't know you were going to be part of. Okay. So while we're talking about the ASA, let's talk about their recent finding, or what do they call it?
Ruling.
Thank you. See, any kind of technical word and I'm lost. On hydration claims. Because that's another one that seems like all over my Instagram. Again, it obviously knows that I'm tired and thirsty constantly.
Yeah. So, yeah, this specific ruling was for a paid Facebook ad published by the brand Humantra.
Right.
So, a food supplement brand who market like electrolyte sachets or drinks, as they call them, but they are food supplements. And there were sort of two parts to the ruling. So one part was that the brand was making medicinal claims in relation to brain fog, headaches, and that was upheld by the ASA. And the second part was that they were making unauthorised health claims relating to hydration. And again, that was upheld. So I think the ASA ruled that the claim that was being made suggested that there was a beneficial effect in terms of rehydration.
Right.
And there are no authorised health claims for hydration in the GB register, and therefore the ruling was upheld and the ad had to be removed.
So that first one seems like a pretty obvious goal. Like, it's amazing that they didn't know they were making medicinal claims. The second one is maybe obvious to you and I, but you can kind of understand why they felt like maybe they were telling what they believed to be the truth about the product rather than quite clearly overselling or over-marketing the product. Was it like a comparative claim, or like were they comparing it to the effects of water or anything like that?
No, it was just a claim about their product. I think it was something to do with the most effective way to hydrate. Right. Just talking about their products. But it is difficult because the electrolyte market, everybody speaks about hydration.
Yeah.
So it sort of sets a market precedent. And although that might not be compliant, you can sort of see why brands.
It'd be interesting to see how
do it.
the market responds to that, because I think if I was making a hydration claim on an electrolyte product, I was just thinking in my head then some of them might have carbohydrates, and I think there might be an authorised health claim for hydration and carbohydrates. I also might be making that up and thinking of energy.
There is an electrolyte balance claim for magnesium. So a lot of the time we see brands using the term hydration and supporting that with the electrolyte balance claim.
Right.
But again, it's still not sort of specifically supported.
It's a stretch.
Yeah.
But why I was thinking about the comparative claim is I remember there was quite a high profile ASA ruling back in the day, and it was a very well-known sports nutrition drink, and they made the claim that their product hydrated better than water. And it contained, because there's something around using the word isotonic, isn't there, and some criteria you have to meet in terms of the glucose and the electrolytes and things like that. And I think they were I think the product matched the criteria to make that claim, but then they stretched it a bit too far, and then they got called out. And I can't remember what the repercussions were, but it could have been quite severe. It definitely would have been like a bit brand reputational risk for them.
Yeah. Because I think with ASA rulings, although there's no immediate fine or cost in that respect, there is the sort of brand reputation effect and trust and.
Yeah. Speaking of like more high profile things, I did warn you I might throw your question at you that I didn't tell you about. There is a very well known UK food retailer who have bought out a range of. They haven't truly bought out a range of products. They've taken an existing range of products and they're marketing them, highlighting the number of ingredients in them. Have you seen that?
Yes, yeah.
And there's been some good silly examples shared on like social media where it's like a tomato ketchup and it has the exact same number of ingredients as Heinz tomato ketchup. Do you think there's any risk in the future for that particular company that we won't name?
Potentially, yes. I think that sort of depends on whether what they're doing at the minute suggests that other foods on the market, whether it raises doubt to their safety or nutritional adequacy. If it raises doubt there as to other foods, then it may breach certain regulations.
It's a weird one, isn't it? Because it's like implications on implications, because they're implying that the product contains less ingredients than the competitors, which may or may not be true. Then there's a further implication, which I think would be almost impossible to enforce upon, which is then from the first implication, they're implying that because of that, the product is healthier in some way.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's any it's not like when you name a product like natural or organic or whatever, like there's strict regulations and requirements. It feels a lot more grey.
Yeah, it's very much an interpretation point, and it all comes down to what does that mean to the average consumer? And if the average consumer sees that and thinks, oh, it's really healthy or it's better than X product, then there's an issue.
Well, interestingly, that same company got in some trouble for, I think it was like a range of ready meals they bought out that were high in protein, and they were making an unauthorised health claim on protein and its effect on satiety. Speaking of satiety, I didn't even mean that one. That's quite a good segue. I saw that there's been a positive outcome on a new application for a health claim, which is interesting in of itself because they don't come around too often.
No.
But on oat beta-glucans.
Yes, so I believe there was a positive safety or positive opinion from EFSA on that. Oat beta-glucans for something to do with, was it
post-meal glucose spike suppression, which doesn't sound like the sexiest marketing claim, does it?
No. I think potentially what they're trying to get across there is maybe, a benefit or maintenance of metabolic health.
Yeah.
But I know you had your own, maybe take on. I was looking at the conditions of use for the claim.
Yeah.
And I think it was something like 30 grams of carbohydrates providing 3 grams of oat beta-glucans.
Right.
So it's likely not a claim that people are going to want to use or going to use in food supplements, maybe more so foods, but potentially sports nutrition products.
Yeah, my hunch was, because I feel like the probably the sexiest claims, and genuinely no pun intended, but anything to do with sexual health and function and weight loss. And I wondered whether they were going after the GLP-1 appetite suppression kind of mechanism and trying to ride that tide. But it'd be interesting to see if it gets approved anyway, and then how businesses and brands are incorporating that into their kind of marketing strategy for products going forward, because weight loss is still obviously a hot topic and definitely sells. And as far as I know, there's no like exclusivity over that claim. Once it's approved, anyone can use that. Is that right?
No. So that is actually a similar situation to magnesium L-threonate, whereby the applicant, which in this case is Scan Oats, they have applied for data protection as well. So I'm not sure whether the same period applies. Might still be 5 years, but it could be, indefinite. I'm not sure on that.
It reminds me, because I mentioned before that these new health claims don't come around too often. And actually, typically what we see in the industry is inclusion of small amounts of nutrients that have authorised health claims on a new ingredient or a new product to try and market it in some way, rather than genuinely trying to bring a new ingredient with a new health claim to market. We don't see it very often. But I was speaking at an event in, I want to say Denmark, and I really should know. But there was a brand there, and they're a brand, they're also an ingredient manufacturer, and they manufacture, second to magnesium, probably one of the hottest ingredients on the market at the moment, that being creatine. And somebody in the audience asked the question, are there any new authorised health claims coming through for creatine? Because there's the good one around exercise, but it's quite limited to like intense exercise. So if, again, judging from my Instagram feed, which maybe isn't the best echo chamber to judge things by, but it feels like people are now using it for endurance and also for things like mental health and cognitive benefits. Like I saw something that I really wanted to believe. I've got a 5-month-old son. Sleep deprivation is a real live topic for me. But I saw something about high doses of creatine helping with the effects of sleep deprivation. I was like, oh God, that sounds interesting. And then I do have a nerdy reg brain, believe it or not. That switched on. I was like, I wonder if anyone's going to apply for a new claim for that. Anyway, the guy from the creatine manufacturer, he basically said, we're not going to bother because everyone is talking about the product benefits online anyway, and there's this association. And because the UK and Europe tends to follow the US has already said everything, and they can say it because they don't have the same stringent rules around it. Yeah. So that by the time it comes to the UK and the EU, they're of the opinion like we don't want to invest the money in it and go through the hurdles on it. Yeah. Yeah. But anyway, another one for us to kind of keep our eyes on and see how that develops. So we're going to shift gears a little bit now. And seeing as we have you today, and I know you've got a lot of expertise in, probably a lot of weird and wonderful questions you've been asked throughout your career so far. I wanted to talk a little bit around product classifications, what that kind of looks like in the UK and the EU. And if you're a brand and you've got something genuinely innovative, what are the considerations that you need to make? And I guess we'll start with product classifications because in the UK and EU, we talk about food supplements, talk about medicines, medical devices, general products, cosmetics. What are some of the kind of, if you're a brand coming to market, what are the things to look out for that would indicate which one of those classifications you are likely to fall under, and then what are the implications as well for that brand?
Yeah. So, I mean, to start with, you probably want to look at the formulation and the intended use of a product. So, if the intention is to, provide vitamins and minerals to the human body via an oral route, then that's a food supplement. But you obviously want to look at the formulation to check that everything in that food supplement is compliant for the market that you're entering. I think it's really important to look at sort of the legal definitions of all of those product categories you just mentioned. So, for example, the legal definition of a medicine has two limbs, one being the presentational limb, which is essentially claims, and the second being the functional limb, so does it act as a medicine? So if a product satisfies just one of those limbs, then by default it is classified as a medicine.
Have you said the word limb enough that it doesn't sound funny to you? Every time I hear it and I have to explain it to customers, I wish they had called it anything else.
Yeah. So, if you had a food supplement making medicinal claims, then it's automatically going to fall under that presentational limb and be a medicine. So I think that's sort of the place we start. But I always say not to be that annoying regulatory person. But with product classification, it really is case by case.
Yeah.
And you just want to look at it through a microscope.
You don't want to get halfway up that travelator and fall on your face at the first hurdle.
Yeah.
No. And I guess so in terms of the implication for a brand, there's different routes to market, right? And there's different requirements and presumably different like regulatory burdens and costs associated with those. So if you're in our world, which is the like food supplement, health, wellness world, I assume it's beneficial to try and bring your product to market as a food supplement.
Yeah, definitely. I would say as a food supplement in the UK or in the EU, you can probably get to market within months.
Right.
As a medicine, years. So
it's years just to do a redesign.
Yeah.
I know that firsthand and it's painful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everything in medicines is ironically painful.
And very expensive. So.
Yeah. Okay, so say you are an innovative brand, or you're a brand and you've got an innovative solution for delivering your product. What are the kind of things you have to look into in those cases?
Yeah, so a recent example actually that we've sort of been seeing and having discussions of internally was oral pouches.
Are those like the nicotine-y things that you...
Yeah, so...
Is it like a lozenge or something?
No, so it's sort of like a sachet, like a food grade sachet, obviously, that you place underneath your lip. Right. And a lot of them contain nicotine. Right. I think they're called snus. Wouldn't quote me on that, but I think that's right. And they're sort of becoming increasingly popular. Yeah. But most of the time they're used for smoking cessation. Yeah. And because they're used for smoking cessation, that makes them medicines. Yeah. But nicotine itself isn't a substance that's regulated by the MHRA. So just having nicotine in it doesn't make it a medicine on its own. But again, it's about that overall presentation of the product. Yeah. But yeah, we're now seeing these oral pouches sort of emerge in, can you put caffeine and vitamins and minerals in them and market them as food supplements? I think that's quite big in the US at the minute, and it's sort of taken off there, and now we're seeing it slowly moving over, but it's really a grey area in regulation. So I guess like the first thing to consider with that is, does it meet the definition of food? And food is a substance or product that's supposed to be ingested by humans. And then you have to consider, is it a food? Does it meet the legal definition of a food supplement? But obviously with these oral pouches, they're designed to be taken out. Yeah. You would never swallow them. So are they ingested? But arguably some of the food ingredients will be ingested because they might be taken up through the cheek or in the saliva and swallowed. So it's a really difficult area to sort of, figure out where you place that product in terms of legislation. And obviously you do have the general product legislation that it serves as a catch-all if it doesn't fit into any of the other pieces of legislation, but it's difficult because it arguably could go into food supplement legislation because they are concentrated sources of nutrients in a dose format.
It's funny for me because I think from the outside looking in, people look at Rubicon Bridge and we're the sexy sister because we're the technology company, right? But Rubicon Technical, you're in a lot of ways on the cutting edge of things like this because we develop solutions that make regulatory compliance super simple and straightforward. So all of that thinking has been done before, but you guys are the guys doing the thinking, which must be really interesting. And so I'm wondering for a brand that is looking to bring a solution like that to the market, obviously you're advising them of the risks, but presumably there's a next step they can take to give them some kind of assurance that if they do go to market, they've got like an official opinion or something like that to fall back on.
Yeah, I think doing your due diligence and coming to someone like Rubicon to sort of do that whole review of all the pieces of legislation, the overall presentation of the product is really key. And if it still sort of lands in that grey area, there is the option to go to your local trading standards officer and get an opinion from them. So then when you go to market, you've got that sort of assurance.
Yeah, I always think people get the wrong idea about regulatory affairs because they think that you're sat up there in that office with a big stick whacking at people saying, no, you can't do that. But that isn't really your job, is it? Your job is to advise brands on the risks of certain actions that they might want to take. And once you've detected a risk, it's up to them whether they take it or not. But your advice and the value add doesn't really end there because in all likelihood, because you've detected a risk, there is a chance that they could receive some kind of authority challenge down the line. So I guess part of the service that you guys kind of complete for brands is pulling together that due diligence so that in the case that they do get challenged, rather than waiting to get that challenge and then doing their due diligence and pulling together a risk assessment or whatever it is, you've kind of done that up front and you're ready for that. You've communicated that risk within the business, which sadly does not happen often enough in my experience.
Yeah, definitely. And once you've done that risk assessment, you can then even put extra pieces in place to mitigate the risk further or show, that you have considered these elements and here's what you've done to make sure that ultimately it's safe for the consumer. I guess what we're there to do is protect the brand and protect the consumer.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, Scarlet, and thank you for listening to Regulatory Roundup. If you haven't already, subscribe to us on YouTube and follow us on LinkedIn.